What's up everybody, welcome back to Zero Mile ADV, a true beginner's guide to adventure motorcycling from a beginner's perspective. Before we get into the whole KTM disaster and what does that mean for this blue bike, I first want to thank everybody that has gone to zeromileadv.com. Thank you for all the messages you've shot us about going to the website and how there's just generic AI generated stock photos and everything's $1 and nothing really works yet. That's because we are still in the pre-production phase for all of our products. If you're new and you're just now seeing one of these videos, because there aren't a whole lot of you, I'm in the process of actually making some motorcycle apparel that actually is wearable, looks good, and doesn't look like you just came off the racetrack. So with that, we are in what we call the pre-production phase. So we are in our last round of pre-production samples, meaning that we have basically a few more coming to us to review to make sure they meet all of our specifications, styling, materials, all that stuff. We made some minor changes to the last round of pre-production samples, so I'm hoping this should mean we should be able to go into full production, which will then take about 2 to 3 weeks to get everything produced. So with that, hoping to have everything launched by like early to mid-April, which will give us a good springtime launch to get ready to go into summer, and for me to wear them going into the New Mexico BDR, which will be a great test for the apparel to see how it works and actually is functional and if I still look good and if it protects me on the BDR. So with that, thank you for everybody who's gone there. If you haven't and you're interested, download our BDR packing checklist because that will get you on the email list, as our first run is only going to be I think we'll have enough product, our very first production run, for about 120 people, maybe a few more, depending upon how many people buy multiple things and not just one item. So assuming everybody only buys one thing, there's only going to be a couple hundred people that will be quote unquote first edition. And all the first edition stuff will have a patch on it that says first edition. I want to do something cool for everybody that is part of the first edition community for Zero Mile. You took a chance on us. We're a new company. So I want to make sure we celebrate you and really make you part of the community. So I want to do something cool. I don't know what that is. If you have any good ideas, maybe it's a lifetime discount, maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what it is. What would, if you're willing to take a chance on Zero Mile, what would be awesome for you to really make you feel special for being a first edition customer, which is insanely important to me and to everybody else in this community. So with that, leave a comment below. And now, let's get into it. The KTM Disaster. If you're new to motorcycling, like me, although I'm a couple years in this, so I follow motorcycling quite a bit and I'm building a motorcycle apparel company, so I don't know if I'm really new anymore. I'm kind of novice, I guess, intermediate. Intermediate's probably a better term. KTM is going through kind of a big financial disaster. Very similar to what here in the US, because I have some people that watch from overseas, the US automakers, so Chevrolet, GMC, they're kind of the same in the Chrysler group, so Jeep, Dodge, Ram, they kind of went through a similar thing. The short answer is I think that KTM at this part is probably too big to fail. I'm not sure what other companies are in Austria. I think Capita snowboard companies there, but like, are there any like other billion-dollar companies? And I don't think Capita is a billion-dollar company, but you know, are there other like billion-dollar too big to fail companies in Austria? And if not, if this is one of like Austria's largest companies, they're probably too big to fail, right? Because they employ a lot of people. There are a lot of ancillary companies that make parts for these bikes, etc. So like, do I think it'll get figured out? I do think it will. So I'm not going to go into all the financial details and why I think it will work out, even though it's a bit crazy to me. Fortnite does a really great video talking about that whole process and what is going on there. So go check that out if you want to see that and really get into like an understanding of what happened at KTM, why they're going broke. Leave a comment below, because if you're watching this and you're into adventure bikes, you probably have your opinion as to why KTM is going broke. But does that mean I'm going to immediately kind of fire sell this bike? Because if you're new and you're not aware, Husqvarna is owned by KTM. I am actually a little bit worried for Husky, because Husky was one of those companies, their motorcycle division was struggling, and then KTM bought them out. But this is essentially a KTM 890R that just looks better, in my opinion. It's got the same WP Explorer suspension, the same engine. I think it just looks a lot better. Although it's got a crappier rear seat, you know, although I don't know. The 890R has very much like a motocross style seat. It is probably the 890R is probably the most popular adventure bike for like doing a lot more off-road, and So a lot of people do a lot of miles on that seat. So it might be not so bad. I'm not sure. But this seat is comfortable on the highway, just too wide on the rear. I got a whole other video about that. But does it mean I'm going to fire sale this because of this whole KTM disaster? No, I don't think so. If I do sell it, it's because I really actually do want to get a BMW like 1300. I would also consider buying like a used 1250 GS. I don't think I want the GSA. There are still a number of 1250 GSAs available, but they got the bigger tank. They sit a little taller. The height probably doesn't bother me so much, but I just don't know if I want that really wide tank. It just seems so big and wide. I don't know that I would want that. But if I do sell it, it's because I want to get a BMW, and it has nothing to do with this KTM issue. And I just like getting other bikes and enjoying them, riding them, and letting somebody else enjoy it and getting something different. So that would be the reason why I would sell this. So let's get to the point of my channel, which is usually around just kind of a beginner's perspective. And would I buy a KTM now, knowing what is going on with them financially? Would I buy one now? I am a bit biased. This is my second KTM. My very first motorcycle that I ever owned was a KTM 1290 Super Adventure S that I had a lot of fun on, but then I wanted to get more off-road oriented. Now I have the Husqvarna 901, which is a lot more off-road oriented. So if I were new and I was going to spend my money to buy a new motorcycle, would I get a KTM? Honestly, I would say yes, sheerly because I think you could probably get a really good deal on them. I think part of this whole financial thing is that they have too much inventory in the market, and they were trying to like really have a high price. And if you know anything about economics, that doesn't work, right? So the demand wasn't there, but yet they raised the price. And so generally if there isn't enough demand to meet the price, you got to lower the price to get the product moving, and they just weren't doing that. But they are doing it now. My local dealer here in my small town, and if you could tell, we are just real close to the Utah border. You might actually be able to see the LaSalle Mountains in Moab just right over my shoulder. But my local dealer here has two KTM 890Rs, which I've really been interested in. I think I talked about before. I actually tried to get an R before I bought this bike. But ironically, the R they were trying to sell for like $24,000, which was just a lot of money. And now I think you can pick one up for, they have them at like 17, and they have two of them. So honestly, like I might like sell this just to get the 1290R because I've always wanted it. It's just such an awesome bike. My S was amazing. So to have that WP Explorer suspension, the 21-inch front wheel, like, oh, it would be so fun. So, I mean, the short answer is like, I would buy that. I would probably go buy that 1290R right now if I didn't have this. And I might even consider it. I gotta stop. I'm not buying the R, but I would consider buying it because you can get a stellar deal on it. I also think, let's assume worst case scenario and KTM can't raise the money they need to by June, and they just actually have to start liquidating everything. You could probably buy two bikes at that point for the cost of one. So you could buy one as like a parts bike, assuming you're never gonna be able to get parts again. But two, there are so many people that make parts for these bikes that I think it would be a long time before like you wouldn't be able to get parts for them and you wouldn't be able to service it. So I think like you'd be absolutely fine buying one, at least for a couple years. So if you want to buy a bike to ride forever and you want it to last forever, then maybe I wouldn't. Like maybe I'd buy a Honda Africa Twin or something else, which you know isn't going to go anywhere. That might be the better choice. But if you're like, you know what, I want a cool adventure bike and I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it in a couple years, maybe I'm going to hate it and I'll sell it, or maybe I'll love it and want to get something else, but you're kind of, you know, you're only in it for a few years, then I probably would go for it. Although honestly, I think they're too big to fail. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. And I think you could probably get an awesome deal. And if you want to hold out until June and you don't want to, depending on where you are, like where I'm at, the weather's, it's like amazing today. It's like 60 degrees and the dirt's drying out. And so if you want to start riding now, I mean, even now there's some great deals to be had. So, and I think they're even doing like, if you don't have cash to pay for one, I think they're even offering like 0.9% financing or something. Go to KTM's website. I looked the other day to see if they were doing any like crazy financing to try to move inventory. And I think they are. So they have some really good incentives. Like if you can't pay for cash for one and you have to like finance it, there's some options there. But yeah, I probably would buy one. And again, I think it's like the US auto deal. I think KTM at this point is just too big to fail. They employ too many people. They're $1 billion company. I think it'll get figured out. I think it would be cool if like BMW gets involved, because BMW, you can see like with the F900, or not the is it the F900? The more off-road 900, not like the Adventure 900, but like the more off-road 900. BMW is like getting the itch to get more and more like heavier off-road. And so if they bought KTM, you could get like still that amazing European and German engineering, but with like all the race and just like nastiness of the KTM. That would be super cool. Like, I actually think it'd be really cool if yeah, if BMW would is the one. I don't know, that's a rumor. We'll see what happens. But the short is no, I'm not fire selling it. I think KTM made some terrible decisions. Obviously not enough to affect me. This is my second KTM that I have now purchased. Although I do think the Norden 901 looks way better than the 890R. Am I right about that? Leave a comment below. So with that, go check out zeromileadv.com. We got some cool stuff coming. Be one of our first customers. Download our packing checklist. And until next time, stay safe out there.